Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. Frank here. This is part 3 or episode 3 of the Benchtop Power Tool Mobile Workstation. First episode we built the carcass and out of 3/4 inch plywood and the face frame out of walnut. And the second episode we built some old school solid walnut doors, matched the grain across the face of the cabinet. Gives an unusual, very pleasing appearance. Having cabinet doors grain matched like that is something you would only find in good furniture. I think that's a nice touch. The doors were shaped on a wood shaper, and we mounted them to the cabinet last episode. In this last installment on this project, we're going to make a top. I think last time I mentioned I might use some ambrosia maple. Ambrosia maple is maple that's was infected by the ambrosia beetle, and it leaves gray oval streaks, gray streaks and small pinholes in the lumber. Some people prize the ambrosia maple for its appearance. It does have a very striking appearance. I'm not a big fan of it. I've used it for just utility stuff because it's maple. So I was going to use it for the top of this workstation, but it's pretty thin. It's 3/4 inch, 1x8s and 1x12s. And I decided I want something a little beefier. I do have a big pile of hardwood lumber here, so I went and picked out a couple of boards of walnut that I decided I'm going to use. There's some 6/4 boards. They were a little bowed, but since I'm cutting them to 3 feet long, it's easy enough to remove the bow, so I picked those boards out of the pile and I'm going to use them. They would not be useful for anything longer than 3 feet, so I figured out let's go ahead and use them. And I cut them to length on the miter saw, rough length, 43 inches basically. Jointed one face smooth, or mostly smooth, and then took them all to the planer and surfaced both sides. Got nice clear parallel surfaces. Last thing I did before I came over here to the table saw is joint one edge. So I have a nice square edge that's perpendicular to the two faces. Last step is to rip the boards to width, which I'm getting ready to do that now. And once we get them ripped, we'll throw them together and see what kind of a top we can make out of these boards. Done. Right now I'm just ripping the boards to width, taking the wane edge off. And this is good. This is nice lumber. So, all right, I'm going to finish ripping these other couple of boards, and we'll take the next step in terms of creating the actual workbench top. Definitely have some reactive wood here. That board is dead flat. Rip a strip off the end and it goes crazy. This board is flat. I mean, it's kind of amazing. All these boards are flat. I mean, when you joint one face and then plane them, I've already jointed this one edge straight, so it's parallel to, or perpendicular to the faces, and square. Now these are long, clearly too long, but always start with longer boards. Especially when you run them through the planer, in case you have some snipe, which is a little irregularity in the cut depth in the last couple inches. So that gives you a couple inches to cut off to get rid of any snipe. So a little bit of sapwood, as I mentioned. Not too worried about that. Yeah, so I'm only 1.5 inches short there, which I anticipated. I've got one more board. Got to rip another inch off of here, clean that edge up so I can use this piece as opposed to the sapwood there. I'll rip this piece as wide as I can, and then I'll come back and I'll take 1/2 inch off of here, get rid of that sapwood, maybe take 1/2 inch off there, get rid of that sapwood, and that would give me basically a clear top. There's a little pin knot here. Okay, so make a couple more rip cuts here, clean some of these boards up a little bit more, and that'll also reduce the need to use a 2-inch strip or 1.5 inch strip on the front. You know, give me something I can, by reducing a couple of these by 1/2 inch, this board can grow wider, would look a lot better. So I'm just running a couple of these boards back here just to rip off a little bit of sapwood. All right, so what I'm looking at here is, the layout of the boards, just kind of getting the grain matched. So I've got a little bit of lighter wood here and a little bit of lighter wood on these two boards, so they're adjacent, so there's not a stark contrast. This knot here, not my favorite thing. Again, keeping those two boards adjacent. All right, that's a better grain match, these two boards, than this board and that board. So when you're, building a panel, you want to pay attention to the orientation of the grain, or the figure. People call it grain, but it's actually figure. It's the appearance of the grain. I may have to run these two edges over the joiner because they're not closing up. That edge is good. That joint's good. This joint's good. I'm adjusting for how much overhang I want in the front, and thinking maybe could I take another 1/2 inch off this board to get rid of this knot, or at least most of it. And I think I could do that and still have an inch of overhang in the front is plenty. I'm going to have about an inch on each side as well. I want to joint this board one more time. See if we can close that gap up. Need to joint the other edge of this board. All right, that closed that up perfectly. The best way to run these through the joiner is that if you're concerned about a joint not being tight, take one face up against the fence, route this edge, the other board, put the other face up against the fence. And if the fence is off the slightest amount, you'll have complementary angles. They'll match up perfectly. That looks good. I think I'm pretty happy with this. This one, not here. I'm going to leave it for the time being, and my plan is to, when I go to fit the top, final fit width, I'll cut the excess off this edge. But she's looking nice. The only defect on this whole panel is this little pin knot. And if I'm not mistaken, pin knots in walnut are not considered a defect. They've relaxed the standards on walnut lumber. Okay. We need to glue this up. If you have good tight joints, it doesn't take much clamping pressure to hold the panel together for the glue to dry. So your objective is just the tiniest amount of squeeze out, pretty consistent down the entire length of each joint. Put clamps on top and bottom so that you don't bow the panel with the pressure of clamps only on one side. There used to be advice that you would alternate the growth rings up and down as you laid your boards out. That doesn't matter. Your objective should be what the panel looks like. So matching the grain between two boards so it's not a big difference between the colors, so the line doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. So that should be your objective, is getting the best figure, the best arrangement of the grain patterns on the panel. That's much more important than alternating the growth rings on the panels, on the boards. So that's your objective. It's the same reason you match the grain on doors or drawers. If these were drawers, you would do the same thing with the lumber. You would match the grain pattern all the way across. You know, a lot of people when they first start making furniture don't think about that, but that's what you should strive for. Matched grain, continuous grain all the way across. So that's what your objective should be. That's more important than having a little knot here or, you know, the grain direction of your glue ups. None of that stuff's important. This is what's important. Matching the grain. All right, that's going to be a beautiful panel. It's aligned. It's going to be a nice glue up. All right, we'll come back tomorrow, clean this up. All right, it's next day. Actually, it's mid-afternoon next day. It's actually better to come and scrape the glue drips, glue squeeze out off like 2 or 3 hours after you've glued it up before they harden. But you can do it the next day. I mean, it's this scraper has a carbide blade on it. It's made by Cobalt. Which isn't that the Lowe's brand tools? Don't remember where I got this. I'm assuming if it says Cobalt, I guess it's from Lowe's or Home Depot. I don't know. Remember? I don't know which. I don't remember which. If you're doing a glue up and you're planning to put this back through a planer, it's important to get all the little squeeze out nubs flush so they don't, on the underside as you slide something through a planer, you know, the nubs of glue will change the height of the board and give you irregular cut. So you want to make sure that they're all flush before you run them through a planer. Now I'm not Can't run this through a plane. My planer is only 20 inches. This is 24, 20, actually probably 20, close to 26 right now. All right, we're going to trim it to size. So my workbench is 24.5, and I'm going to have a 1-inch overhang. So that'd be 25.5. So I'm going to give myself 1.25 inch overhang. And see how much of this knot I can take off. That took a 1/4 inch off there, which is helpful. All right, I still need to cut it to width, or length in this sense, width as it's on the tool. All right, I think it's wider than my table saw sled will handle, so let's use the track saw. All right, I've got it squared, the track squared up to the board. Just going to take 1/8 inch off this end. Okay, got a beautiful edge there. Measure twice, cut once, 38.5. Very little dust. That dust collection works great. That saw blade is a nice blade. It's got a good cut, no chip out. All right, that's the top, cut to finish size. If I had cut it to the same width as the bench, or only a 1/2 inch overhang, I could have gotten rid of that little pin knot, but not going to worry about it. Okay, let's put it on the bench, see what it looks like. That's not bad for a workbench, right? All right, I'm going to sand the top. Little round over on these corners. Just a small one because I want to be able to use this as a clamping if I have to, right? Got a 1/4 inch round over bit in this. It's become like my favorite router. It's very handy, lightweight. It just takes the sharp edge off. So I've got my 6-inch random orbital Porter cable sander plugged into the Festool dust extractor, hooked up to the hose as well. This is the hose that comes with this sander, but it's plugged into the hose that goes into the dust extractor. So when I turn the sander on, the dust extractor will come on. First time I've used this combination. See how it works. All right, so here's the, I'm going to start calling it shop furniture because that's kind of what it looks like. This is the workbench. Now I don't have the doorknobs on. I have wooden doorknobs to go on, pulls to go on the doors. And I have my first coat of varnish on this and it's drying. So I'll bring you back, put the doorknobs on, secure the top, and then we need to work on the, I think I'm going to put threaded inserts in the top and then use that, create 3 platforms for the 3 tools and have them so I can attach any one of them to the top with some thumb screws. So I'll bring you back, let this dry. All right, I think it's time to go ahead and attach the top. All right, I think we're pretty good there. Now we're just going to drive some screws up through the bottom here. All right, so you notice I put some wood pulls on. I'm sorry, folks. I have to give up. There are not many times when that happens, but I'm kind of at an impasse here. I have been going around and around on the best way to secure the power tools to this top. I've gone, through bolts, threaded inserts, a cleat system, like French cleat system. I don't know. There's 10 ways to do it. And for the life of me, I haven't been able to decide what to do. I've got the sander in here. Go ahead and put the other two tools inside just to get them out of the way. I wound up putting my big belt sander in there. So the storage issue is resolved, certainly, but how I'm going to mount them on here is yet to be determined. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up this video. I am still undecided, as I said, on my mounting method. I have to think about it. I'm starting to think about T-track and some other possible uses for this top. So once I figure that out, I'll record it and I'll share it. Like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and check if you are subscribed. Check and make sure you're still subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps the channel out quite a bit. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you would do, how you would mount these tools to the top, and still, when the tools are put away, still have a usable flat surface. That's the kind of the dilemma. How to do both. I mean, it could be as simple as, clamping a board to the top or something. That's not, what I had in mind. I've had a little more elegant solution in mind, but the use of these tools is pretty intermittent, pretty occasional. Maybe only once or twice a year, at least with my current projects list. They're not really anticipated to be used. The hollow chisel mortiser, it's almost a dinosaur today in today's furniture and cabinetry construction. Everybody's gone to dominoes and using router to do mortises. So I don't know. I still like the hollow chisel mortiser for mortise and tenon joints. So there's certainly still a use for it. It's just not so much in vogue anymore in most cabinet shops, certainly. Not that I'm a cabinet shop, but as far as its utility. The drum sander is certainly useful, and the scroll saw for some projects is, there's nothing else that can do it. So they're kind of essential tools. When you need them, you certainly need them. That's why I still have them. Hopefully putting them in this cabinet, put them out of the way, and give me a work surface that I can actually use. So I need to decide what I'm going to do with that. I'll bring you back when I figure that out, and I'll show you what I decide. So until then, thanks for watching. See you next time.